LEFU channel 347, which is your hallucinating nationwide state of the play today. And a part of the Breton Couture media conglomerate, which is a media franchise from your future. I'm just replying. Well, it's the first time I've done a studio setup, and I'm just seeing how it goes with my voice. I'm hoping my voice is okay because that's really all that matters at the moment. I was going to reply by text because I had a few things to say, but instead I'm going to try an audio, and here we go. So, the only thing that surprises me about all this is that it's not really new, this, and it's been going on for an awful long time. In fact, you could put thousands of years on it. But each 100 years changes the scene somewhat. But essentially, it's the same thing. It's a freeze. The last big freeze, right, that took place was about 100 years ago when you were denied Tesla and free energy. Ooh, free energy. Well, he says not many people can get their heads around the idea of free energy. But there it was. And what did we get instead? We got oil. We've got 100 years ongoing oil manufacturing, which was kicked off by Rockefeller in America and then went to Russia because the company went in there as well. The big families. They were all involved. And it was they who set up the state of Russia, Russian state of communism. But we're not going there today. The only surprise that I get is that people really don't ask the questions that they maybe should be kind of opening themselves up to asking now, because the only fear that any government has is if people start questioning the narrative openly. And it's like, well, you can only do that if you've got a little bit of a story to go with it, I guess. But the media has been controlled probably since Kennedy, or it began to be more controlled then. Back in the 60s, there was a kind of brief period when everything opened up, but I think that was planned too. You see, the problem is that the black magicians who are connected with the ruling elite know the secrets of the system, of how the whole thing works. So I'm talking about they know much more than people really understand, and you can understand it. Just you do have to do a little bit of study because you're not told it in school. And the biggest one is probably symbolism, and you can't go to anyone better than that, than Jordan Maxwell. And so I would say, go and listen to Jordan Maxwell because he's got a few things right, and one is that he's got the corporate world that we're running under in commercial code, which is basically the law of the land. Commercial code. It's about capitalism, centered in Rome, and that's a kind of jurisdiction we're under. Well, politics is a game. It's an entertainment game for the military, who are in pretty much total control. Before I say military, you got to understand that none of these things are simple, and that there's levels. And most military personnel don't know anything about this, so they're just following orders. So it goes up in a pyramid. It's quite obvious. But let me just I'm going to give you a little bit of a story because I've proven to myself that it exists. Covert operations inside black operations where one department doesn't know what the other's doing, but there's certainly stuff going on. And apart from crediting myself with 25 years in the broadcasting industry as an editor, I then left it because I saw where television was going. It's being controlled from well, the excuse is always corporate, right? It's about making money. And if you can't make money, then there's no point in doing it. Which is always the story. Which is a corporate story. It's about bums on seats and getting people listening. But they're cutting out what they don't want to hear, and that's what's been going on for a long time. And I was in it, and I could see it coming. And so I left and did some study. The kind of study that I should have done a long time before that, but I hadn't done that yet. So by the time I got to Occupy, I'd done all the research. I read David Icke, and the problem with people is that they get wrapped up with characters. They don't actually listen to what people are saying. So David Icke, the guy who is a Bolsheviki twat, most people think. Well, that's just his character, man. Let him be. Everybody's got a character, right? Everybody's got a different character, and he's one. He's got a character, but it's much better actually listening to what he's saying. And no one's going to be 100% correct, and I think David Icke knows that too. He doesn't hide the fact that he doesn't know everything, and he was asking questions when he came. I'm going to do Reptilian another time, but because it's had an unfavourable press, the Reptilian, and he needs updating a bit. But so by the time I got to Occupy, I really didn't know how it works when I got there. It was all green to me, but I understand it now. And it was see, from Occupy I went to Runnymede. And what you got to understand is it's all organised from within. All protests that get any kind of publicity in any kind of news service are organised from within. Okay, now I didn't get to that answer that quickly. It took me a while, and part of the RAP research project was to spend 3.5 years from the beginning to the end at Runnymede. Well, Runnymede's in the woods, and supposedly they're setting up an eco village on the Queen's estate, and I missed that because for obvious reasons, and got to this coincidentally the open grounds of Runnymede under in an old Gothic building that was very associated with television back in the day, and kind of like producing films like Centurions and a whole lot of others. Since then, it kind of quietened down. But when we were there, there was no one there at all, really, apart from they were rebuilding it to sell it on, which is why we were in the way. But what I'm saying is, I had the smell of something when I got to Occupy. To really see it through, I had to kind of stay with Runnymede right the way through, because the same people who were involved in Occupy were involved in Runnymede. And my opinion is that what they do, and this is where Dr. Jack Kruse gets interesting, because he starts talking about surveillance. And what I'm going to add to that is that, do you remember Ronald Reagan and Simon Thatcher, who introduced the idea of Star Wars? Well, listen, but I've got several quirky theories about things, and one of them is that no one's been to space at all. And the whole Star Wars NASA program is a front for surveillance of problem individuals back on Earth. So that whole surveillance thing was being set up back at the time of Reagan to cover many things, including interstate politics and wars. Like I said, Most people in the army kind of do what they're told, and of course, they're fighting another country, and because they've been asked to fight another country, and so that's all going on too. It's not going on. It is, but I'm saying there's another covert program behind that one, which is to address the problem um, of voices that might turn up that might cause a problem, and um, it's so they have to kind of draw those people um, out, and because so like am I saying I'm one? Probably, because I've been chased, and I'll tell you that in a second. But uh, what I'm saying is they have to draw you out. So what better way to do that than organise a few protests where they know they're going to get people turn up? See, when I was at Occupy, I remember several stories. There was one guy who I met who turned up from. Well, as soon as he heard it, there was a protest outside St Paul's in London. He was in San Francisco. He took a first flight there, because he knew that was he was meant to be there. It was his calling, and he came and he was there. He'd been there right from the beginning. And I met several people like that. So they do draw people in, right? And um, and that's all about surveillance, really, as well. It's kind of watching people because they're really interested in the kind of people that ask too many questions. I ask questions. I always ask questions, especially if you're a fucking troll. And who hasn't done any work at all, apart from kind of complaining about people who are talking about conspiracy when it's nothing to do with conspiracy. So they drew me out, but I was on a research project anyway because I've got filmmaking in me, and I've now got music as well, but I'm waiting for the right moment for that. Um, so I said Runnymede, and I was watching, right? I was watching everything Runnymede, right? And it's a kind of good place to watch from. Well, they're watching me, I'm watching them. So I'm telling you 100%, it's not just, hearsay. Although no one will talk about it because that's the problem. People won't talk. Especially about anything that's below the threshold, the line that you should be going on, which is kind of like the news stories, which are all set up for people to kind of wallow over, and most people don't get a fucking thing. Most people don't believe there's anything to do with what you might call conspiracies, but it's really not conspiracy when you start putting the picture together. It's just black and white. It's the corporate world, which has been here for a long time, and it works as a pyramid, as any corporation does. There's the boss, and there's people who work, and they do what they're told. It's a really simple exercise. They know how it works, right? Most people do what they're told because they're regimented right from school. And so I watched, right? Well, I also made contact with because my background was media. I thought they might be interested, and I genuinely did. And at Occupy, they had an incredibly well-developed media centre right in the heart of St Paul's, which I was hoping actually would have gone to Runnymede, but it never really turned up for various reasons. I think Runnymede could have been an amazing news service if it had been developed, and I did try and push that, and I got my answer, and I know what the answer is, and I'm not going into those things now, but it wasn't just that. There was a whole lot of things that told me that the whole thing, everything about that, was controlled from outside and inside. It was both. Um, Now, I just want to finish this a little bit with. I'm going to try and. You know, you won't have to believe me, but after I left Runnymede, obviously I was kind of like marked, as they say. So, because I didn't really stop asking questions. when I took people to town on what they claimed they were. I've had no response mostly still, and it's all quiet. It's been like quiet since forever. But when I got to Staines, there was a small group left over from Runnymede who kind of were squatting there. I hung out there with my boat for a bit, and I also at the time I started. Well, I used to call it Warzone, but I go on. I had mobile Wi-Fi at the time, and uh, so I could walk into town with my little mobile Wi-Fi and just switch on anywhere I like. So I used to call Warzone, and I used to give a street in Staines, and I did it once, and I kind of called it on my boat. I kind of put the call out. I did it on Facebook just before that Facebook was taken down. I hadn't been able to access it since. And I went into the middle of Staines, and I sat down, turned the mobile, and called on the Warzone. Well, if I didn't, you wouldn't have believed it, but it kind of like the black operation popped out of the car park like you wouldn't believe. And there must have been about 20 or 30 all on radio mics singing, trying to home in on whoever was going to call the Warzone. And it was me. I was just sat on the seat there. Mainly as an exercise to see what was going on, because it happened a couple of times like that. And as soon as I knew something was there watching me, and I did, because they got really close and they kind of gave it away. Black operations giving it all plain clothes. There was a couple of girls and they just gave it away. And then I walked down. I kind of packed up before I was seen it. And I walked down the arcade, and I heard this guy who's leaning against a post, and he was saying he doesn't give a shit. And I heard him say it. And I kind of looked at him and I said, well, are you going to do anything? Because they weren't doing anything, they were just watching. And but what I'm saying is that was just one. There was a few of those that I proved to myself that I was being monitored, and all that period in Staines that I was being. There were several things that happened to say. I'll tell you another time. So surveillance, what I'm saying is, it's been around for a while, and it's to capture not groups, because there really aren't groups that go anywhere near far enough. There really aren't. If they are, then they've been set up. But individuals, because it's really only individuals who kind of like break through the information, and most won't go there because they're frightened. And they're right to be frightened, because it's frightening. But if you really want to go with it, you have to go the full length, and you have to get over the problem of dying, and you also have to get over the problem of paranoia. And it's like, and instead kind of start doing a little bit of research science. But this was in the field, right? So I'm talking about 4 years research, and I'm still watched, but it's quiet, because I've gone quiet. I kind of I left, right? So it always does go quiet when you're quiet. Because my reach is pretty much zero, apart from a few. I'm no trouble at all, so I know that. Was there anything else I wanted to just check my notes? Just wanted to make sure that I haven't missed anything here. I've lost my notes. I know. No, that'll do. That'll do. Okay, so this is like, instead of writing it, I'm checking out my well, we'll see, right? It's like my porthole. I was looking directly out It's nice bit of blue, isn't it? See you later.